Hi guys, happy new year. This is probably the first video in 2025. So welcome after the long break. As you can see, I am not by myself today. I am with a guest. Some of you might know already, some of you might not know, especially if you're new here. This is my mom, and in today's episode, I'm going to be basically interviewing her and asking her loads of questions about her career journey and how she navigated her journey. I'm sure there are lots of tips, advice, and lessons that you can learn from my mother's journey because she's done it all: entrepreneurship, public service, civil service, private sector, and she now runs her own consultancy business. So if you'd like to know all about this, please grab a pen, grab a notepad as we usually do, and let's get started. But one of the main reasons why I brought my mom to the channel is because my mom has had such a vast career given what she studied, which I'm sure we'll get into shortly. And one of the things that we share, or I share on this channel, is how you don't necessarily have to have a linear career path. I have a video where I talked about career nomadism, and I feel like my mom is an epitome of career nomadism, how you can start at one point and wind up in a totally different point. So let's talk a little bit about your educational background, what you studied, and your first role. That's your first official job that was a source of income for you.
So my first degree is English language, a Bachelor's of Arts in English language. After the mandatory NYSC, Nigerian mandatory NYSC 1 year, I started my first job, my very first job as a teacher in a public school. I had a one year NYSC service it was a higher institution, a polytechnic, where I taught business communication.
Okay, so she taught business communication in during her NYSC, the Polytechnic. Polytechnic is also like a tertiary institution as well. And then after that, she went on and taught in a school.
In a secondary school.
In a secondary school, that's
In
like
a
a high
government
school.
secondary school, I taught English language and literature in English.
Literature in English. So that's like the first relevance to your degree, because
Yes.
she studied English and then she started to teach in a high school. And then after that, what was the next phase of your career?
So, well, as a teacher, I was just not satisfied with closing at 2. We would close at 2 p.m. and I was quite young, maybe about 20, 21. So I decided to go back to school while I was still teaching, and I had a master's degree in public administration. Also, while at that, I started writing for newspapers as a freelance. Um, I had friends who were editors, so they would request that I send them publications. Sometimes they use them. And while I was also doing that, I started a small business, a direct business. I would travel to Abeokuta and buy the material I would sell. And then from there, I would go to Lagos. My parents were in the north then, so I would go to Kano, Kaduna, buy batik, no, Guinea brocade and leather bags. The Hausa leather bags were trending then. So I had that small trading business aside, but I was still not satisfied. I knew that there could be more, even though I had no one to mentor me then, but I knew I could be more. So I began to write applications, and then I got an appointment with one of the big 4 banks in Nigeria then.
Okay, so I really like this trajectory, and I like the fact that one of the things you said is you were not satisfied.
No, I
and
was
you
not.
wanted more.
I wanted
And I
more.
think it's important as young people, because it's also important and to emphasize that she was younger at the time. She was 20, 21, like she said, and she was just not satisfied, and she was young. Because that's also something, I know whether you're young or old, it really doesn't matter. But then being a younger person kind of plays an advantage to why you could actually have the quest and the desire for more. So fast forward, you got a new role with the bank. So how was your banking experience?
Okay,
and
so
what
I
was
got
that
a
journey?
new role as I then had backed my master's degree in public admin.
So she now had a master's, which is the second degree.
Yes.
Over the English first degree.
But that was not what qualified me for the bank room. It was a graduate role.
Okay.
It was
Like
called executive trainee. And then as a graduate, my master's was not actually required, so I didn't even present it at that point in time. So I got into the bank and it was a good experience. The money was coming in. It wasn't challenging in the sense that, the basic thing you need in life is your first degree. From there, you can, build up a career on the job. So it was easy. We had several trainees. We were trained on the job, and I began to rise. You know, there was career opportunity at that point in time, and I rose through the rank to get to the level of the management level. But at the point, the banking sector, after some time, it becomes kind of monotonous. I
Routine,
wasn't
you mean?
satisfied. Yes, it became a routine. I wanted more. More in the sense that I looked at it, said it's a triangle. You keep rising, but the top is always,
Thinner.
yeah, it's thinner, it's steeper at the top. And then you're qualified, but you're stagnated. So at that level, I began to look for more. I went back to school again. This time, I went back to what I really like to do, that's writing. I like to write. So I took a diploma in journalism. I didn't present it in the bank. I just took it for the fun of it. I was no longer satisfied with that role, and I knew I could do better. So coincidentally, at that point, my state government was doing a reform of their internal revenue service, and an advert was placed in the newspaper. I came across it by, I want to look at it as just by divine providence. And one of my friends called me, Nika, you're qualified for this. So I decided to apply for the position of director. The intention was to reform the IRS, the
That's like
inter,
the HMRC in UK, the
yes,
tax office.
the Internal Revenue Service for the state. We started as 7 men with one driver, and I think the chairman had a PA. And I was saddled with the responsibility of recruiting staff, onboarding them, training them, and ensuring that they are put in the right places where they fit into. So it was a heavy task, which we did for about 4 years. It was a tenured appointment.
Wow. And I think that's really, really impressive because at this point, working in the tax office, it had nothing to do with your first degree. It also had nothing to do with your second degree. Or did
A
that
little,
play?
yeah, a
Okay.
little public admin,
I
yes.
think it's important to also mention that that master's in the public administration was relevant in the application for this role because this time
Yes.
around it was
Yeah, it
the
was an admin role
public
that,
sector.
yes, was an admin role and public sector. It was also mentioned that I went back to school for another master's degree.
When you
That
were in the
when I
bank.
was in the bank, I usually don't like to be idle. I remember driving to school one day, taking one of my children to school, and I mentioned, I would love to go and do another master's. And they encouraged me. So I went back and I did another master's degree, not related to banking, not related to public admin. I did another master's degree in literature in English.
Literature and English.
And it was quite fun. It was just my interest for African literature that took me back to school for that. So that became an additional qualification. I didn't use it for anything basically.
And I think that's important as well because sometimes when people want to get certificates or you want to get certification, you want to get another degree, you're always wondering, how is this going to be relevant to my career? I think what this shows is sometimes you don't necessarily have to connect the dots just between as a teacher and working in the commercial bank and then from commercial bank to public sector. How was that transition and what were the skills that you would say helped you navigate it easier?
I think one of the things that actually helped me was my continuous interest in personal development and continuous learning. I used to tell people that I could work anywhere. Maybe I cannot be a doctor, probably. So your ability to humble yourself, be meek, ability to be curious, be inquisitive, then go the extra mile. Don't restrict yourself to your job role alone. Be interested in what others are doing. For instance, if your role is, maybe you're a credit officer, you're doing credit analysis, and there's somebody who is in funds transfer, when you're free, you can walk close to that person, just show some interest. That way, before you know it, you become noticeable, and then your skills will begin to speak for you. So those are some of the things that helped me. I was always inquisitive. I'm curious. I'm always willing to learn, and I think that helped me. And then because I was quite young, so I think even in most of those stages, I was almost the youngest. So that role also became easier. People will listen to you when they see that, oh, just small girl.
What do you have
That's
to
it.
say?
Yes.
And I think so. What I'm picking is stay curious. Also be open to learning, regardless of whoever is giving you that knowledge. Don't ignore the process. Submit yourself to the process of learning, and I think that's really important. So now let's talk about post working in public service. So post working in public service, you had a tenured appointment, and this was now your first time going back to working for yourself after so many years. You had
Yeah.
previously worked as an entrepreneur, but now you're working as a management consultant. So I think this probably okay. That would be a separate question. But how was the experience coming off public sector now into management consultancy, where you're running your own private firm?
When I left the bank, I went with some relationship, people that I had met in my journey, in my banking career. And the good thing about this, the banking career, the banking world is also is that you are able to network, you meet people from different fields. So I had that relationship. It's like those relationships are like assets that you store for future use. So by the time I now got to the public sector, oh, you are now open up to greater opportunities, particularly if you work in a tax office, you're talking to almost everybody. The lows, the highs, the middles, you know every one of them. While you are doing all of those things, you must be able to keep those contacts. And don't mess up with contact by going to ask for favors for things that's like peanuts. So I learned early in life to identify relationship that could be useful for me in the future. So I stored them somewhere. So by the time I left the public sector, I also tried my hands in some consultancy job with another state in Nigeria. One of my friends invited me and we did some job there. But then COVID came and COVID changed a lot of things. So at that point, I sat down and, oh, these things that I'm doing for people, I can do it for myself. So, that's when I began to do it full time.
Just to quickly rub off of that, how do you now balance maintaining a relationship for for a future purpose in such a way that it doesn't look like you're using people or just taking advantage of them? Because everyone keeps saying build your network. How do you know you're trying to build your network, but you know that this is a relationship for future purpose? But how do you now balance that?
The keyword is value. You must be adding value. Every relationship that you have, in fact, the only reason that relationship can be useful for you in future is because there's a value addition between the two of you. The fact that I'm leveraging on relationship means that I have value that I'm placing on the table for that relationship to work. So if I have nothing to offer, it doesn't matter. Relationships only gives you lifeline. What you do with the lifeline is what will sustain that relationship and also open up other opportunities for you. Otherwise, it will just be that one and that one alone.
Wow, that's so profound. Just look for ways to add value and not just be
Yes, add value, offer
a
services,
leech that
be
is
a
just
solution provider. Ensure that at every point you are offering solutions today.
wow.
So I think that
Wow,
was it.
that's so, so, so important. And I think even if there's anything you're going to pick out from all that my mom has said today, careers don't have to be linear. They could be squiggly, they could go up, go down. And don't also limit yourself in a box. Don't put yourself in a box. Like my mom said, once you realize you're no longer getting satisfied, you've reached a peak and there's nothing new again. It's becoming routine, monotonous. It's time to seek new challenges, seek out new adventures,
Yes.
if that's what you want anyway. What would you just say is the main lesson or the main advice you just give to a young star just starting out in their career and willing to just reach the peak at every level like you did?
For some, they just have to remain on that career path and keep growing. Once the opportunities are there, and then once you can picture yourself in the ladder, you must know how you are going to grow in that career anyway. Whatever career you're into right now, if you cannot see your future in it, you must begin to channel and pattern your way out of it early enough so that you don't get caught off guard. You cannot rise to become the owner of the business. So you need to know what is your what is your career path? What are the opportunities that are open to you? where would you be in like 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years in that career? If you cannot figure that out from the day you entered into that business or that organization, then that same day begin to channel your exit. Don't wait until you begin to get to a point and then it becomes a triangle and the only vacant place is one person, and then you begin to pray and fast to be that one person. It's not your business. So as young people who are just coming up, if you are not the owner of your business, you are not you are not an entrepreneur, you are an employee, and you want to make a career of that employment, then you need to check what is the peak? How do I get there before you remain there? That's one. Then another line you can look at is what excites you. Personally, I don't know if it works for this Gen Z generation. The moment I'm no longer excited about what I do, when I wake up in the morning, I don't feel like going to work. That was when I knew I had to be out of the bank. Then you wake up in the morning, you are not excited. When I go on leave and it's time to resume, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going back to this job.
I have to.
So you shouldn't get to that level because the handwritings are always there on the wall. And your exit can be maybe you can change career. You can go for further certification to move you to another field. Do you need certifications? Do you need additional qualifications? I always encourage people to improve on themselves. It might not be getting masters, but it could mean getting additional certification like PMP. If that is what will help you in your own career, you're an engineer, go for it.
Wow, those are really key truths, to be honest. Explore opportunities. Don't be afraid to change careers. It's never too late. It's not that you can't change careers when you are old. It's easier when you are younger. But if you're old, it's still never too late.
It's
You
never
can.
late.
There are people who go back to school to study law at 60.
Do what you enjoy or enjoy what you do.
Perfect. I think that's a perfect way to just end the video.
Otherwise, you'll be frustrated.
So profound, and there's been so many gems and lessons that we've just tried to squeeze into this time. And I know my mom is a fountain of wisdom, knowledge, and wealth. I usually call her like, Mom, I'm stuck at this position at work, and she always has the perfect advice and perfect counsel. Thank you so much for coming to the channel to share with my amazing community many life lessons. This is what I drink from, the well that I drink from. Thank you so much. I hope you learned one or two things. If you did, let me know in the comment section. If you haven't subscribed to the channel and you've watched this far, please subscribe. Join our 1,000 plus community, and I will definitely see you in the next one. Bye for now.